Hey guys, Nish Quick here. Welcome back to the EXP podcast. It's been a while since I've done an episode, but I am back with a very special guest. Today I'm here with Jay from Cold Nights Gaming, and Jay has a very awesome channel, very wholesome guy. I just want to say, Twitter can be a crazy, hectic, toxic space, but Jay is a super wholesome, really positive guy who I met on there, and I love the community he's made and grown over like Twitter, Discord, and YouTube, and of course, his content is amazing as well. So if you enjoy gaming of all kinds, JRPGs, Nintendo Switch, any kind of gaming, he's your guy to go to. Jay, you want to introduce your channel and the kind of games you're interested in?
Yeah, for sure. My name's Jay. I'm the, I guess, personality over at Cold Nights Gaming. We started a YouTube channel about a year ago, and I have a real heavy focus on collecting, nostalgia, and lore. And specifically, I love Zelda lore and Fire Emblem lore, and we might talk about those things today.
Yes. Yes, most indeed, yes.
Yeah, we also stream a lot of good, JRPG and retro stuff over on Twitch, Cold Nights Gaming as well. And you can find me on Twitter under a different name because I got locked out of my original one. It's Cold Nights Gami 1.
That's funny. But yeah, all of that will be linked in the description below, and follow him and subscribe to him and check out his stuff. Really awesome guy. And yeah, like Jay said, today we're talking about primarily Zelda, but I want to end off with a little bit of Fire Emblem, because I unfortunately have not gotten the chance to talk about Engage on the channel, but I mean, I did once or twice, but today I'm going to be talking about it a bit more. But the big thing I want to talk about is the story of Tears of the Kingdom, because some of you guys might remember I made a video on why some things in Tears of the Kingdom's story disappointed me, but I want to also hear from other people who had more positive experiences, because I didn't hate the story, and I'm just really critical when it comes to some things. So we're just gonna have a friendly discussion about what worked and what didn't work. So speaking of positives, Jay, what are some of your favorite moments in Tears of the Kingdom story? And actually, I forgot to say, obviously, spoiler warning for Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and later on, Fire Emblem Engage. But yeah, Jay, what are some of your favorite things about Tears of the Kingdom story?
We're starting off with a rock star.
Yeah, let's go.
You were talking.
You're good. But yeah,
My favorite moments in the story, I would say, are probably, for me personally, basically everything that has to do with Master Koga.
Oh, yeah.
I love that whole storyline to death, and how you can infiltrate the group. And a lot of people completely missed that in their playthroughs. You know, I was posting about it on Twitter, and people were like, whoa, you can do that? Like, you can fully infiltrate the Yiga clan, and there's a whole bunch of side quests and fun little, like, battles you can do. And I'm a huge person for, like, getting all the costumes and playing dress up with Link. It's one of my weaknesses. And I loved...
I've seen some of your cool tie-dye outfits with Link and everything. Yeah.
I was originally just pursuing the Yiga clan costume, and then I did not realize that there was so much content there. So I definitely loved that. But I also loved the stuff that happened with the Zonai Sage, and it kind of opened the possibility for a lot of questions about the game, and it made me wonder if it could be possible that ability was not unique to her. And it kind of got my brain going, and I was like, wait a minute, what if some of these Zonai constructs that we've been dealing with were actually people from that long dead race that had done something similar to her? And you know, there's no way to prove that, it's all conjecture.
No, I think that's a very cool point, because Minoru was the one, like the Zonai Sage Minoru, she was the one who created the constructs in the first place. So maybe with some soul manipulation or spirit manipulation, she brought those constructs to life because of that. So I think that's a really cool theory, actually.
Yeah, I kind of thought about that. It just came to me one day, and I was like, wow, I wonder if hopefully not some of the ones that we were killing, but you know, maybe some of the friendlier ones, you know, that maybe they were kind of like a R2D2 type, you know, a little personality, like maybe they were somebody before. But, I mean, my thing with it is the memories were fun to collect, and the way you collect them as far as gameplay was really unique. I did enjoy that. But the problem for me is that I was completely enamored by the memories with the champions from Breath of the Wild. And it's unfair to compare them, but you have to. And there is not until you get towards the end of the game, I feel, anything of that kind of like soul-shaking, emotional value. At the end of the game, some of the stuff and like those last boss fights and stuff was incredible. And yes, like the whole Zelda Light Dragon thing is emotional, and I have some more you know, theories on that and how that's not necessarily good how the game ended. I do have some theories on that we can get to later. But yeah, I would say those were my highlights of the story. That's cool. For sure.
I'm glad you mentioned Master Koga, because you're right. Not many people talk about him, and not many people talk about the Yiga stuff, because I was surprised to figure this out. I was surprised to realize that many people save the depths for the end game, meaning like, oh, I'm gonna do all the shrines, I'm gonna do all the surface stuff, the Sky Island stuff, I'm gonna do all the dungeons, then I'm gonna go to the depths. But me, and I don't know about you and some other people, but me, that first weekend when I got the game, I was all around in the depths, exploring and doing everything. So I got the auto build and I fought Master Koga, and I was like, wow, this is where he is. Like, you kicked him down into the, like, that giant chasm in Breath of the Wild, and now he's here, and it makes so much sense. And it was also cool, like you said, getting the Yiga set, going to very important locations from Breath of the Wild and seeing that the Yiga have their base of operations there. Like in the Great Plateau, you go to the old man's house, and they're there, and then some other places I can't really remember right now, but that was one place I was like, hey, let's go by the old man's house, let's see what's over there. And the Yiga are over there, and it's like this giant web of mysteries, and then eventually you go down there. I was a little upset with how it ended, but in the grand scheme of it, I wasn't that upset, because Koga is just that kind of guy who has lofty like ambitions and everything, but then with one like smart little thing, Link can like turn everything around. So I just love that Koga mentions the Demon King. He's like, I know where the Demon King is. I have like the ambition to like revive the Demon King. I thought that was really cool, because that's what I wanted from the Yiga. I was like, the Yiga serve Calamity Ganon, and I want them to serve Ganondorf in this. So that connection was really cool as well. And
I will say, the thing with Yiga and Koga is, for one, check out my awesome lore video on it.
Oh yes, he does.
To historical events in the world, but also one of my big problems, and it's kind of an indictment on Zelda, just like I had a lot of indictments with Zelda and Breath of the Wild, and how that her, you know, misgivings led to a lot of the tragedy that happened. I don't know what is going on in the kingdom. You know, it seems like we've put a lot of time into like removing the old technology, but not improving anything or policing it. How Master Koga was allowed to operate with impunity in the depths. Okay, I get it that no one's going, like, there's not like knights going down to the depths to find him, but they took over Robbie's laboratory. They were in the old man's house. Like, there are places that they were obviously at, and if anyone was doing any kind of reconnaissance work or investigative work for the kingdom, they would know that there is a very dangerous threat, because as silly as Koga is, right, especially if you played Age of Calamity, they are straight stone cold killers. Right?
They're very some you can call incompetent, but in the end they're ninjas, and they're very powerful like warriors, as you see with even Koga and Suga. His name was Suga, right, in Age of Calamity?
Suga was extremely powerful.
Like those blade masters, they're business. So it's funny that like that is another thing about Tears of the Kingdom that I realized. there's some inconsistencies, and you can find like big questions and be like, how does this make sense? So that's one slight issue I had with the game as well. But I appreciate your you mentioning the Yiga, because in a lot of discussions about Tears of the Kingdom, I don't hear many people talking about them. And yeah, everyone watching, you guys should check out his Yiga lore video. It was really awesome. And one thing I wanted to say next is, you were saying how Breath of the Wild story was focused on the champions. I think that is a very interesting observation, because Breath of the Wild story was very character focused instead of plot focused, because it was much more abstract and you can get the memories out of order and it'll still kind of make sense. The problem with Tears of the Kingdom is it did go more of a linear focus with the memories and some of the things happening in the present, but you approach it in a non-linear way. So I made a video, like in my video, I basically say, maybe the second or third video or memory that I got was Queen Sonia's death. And then right after that, I saw the memory of Zelda, like, talking about her feelings for Link and talking about how she, like, talking to Rauru and Sonia about Link and who he was and all that. And I was like, I wish I got to see some of these memories before the memories, like, the important memories. And even, like, later on in the game, like, some of the Thunderhead Isle stuff, I was thinking in my head, I was like, I could have gone here at the very beginning of the game, but I'm glad that I like did it near the end. And even some of the Kakariko Village things, I was like, I wish the ring ruins came down a little later and it was a little more scripted. It was kind of like a cause and effect. Maybe you do some dungeons, then the ring ruins fall. So that non-linearity played into some of my grievances with Tears of the Kingdom story, even though a lot of what was being told was still good. So what are your thoughts on that?
No, I completely agree there. I think that it was a huge missed opportunity not to have you develop an emotional attachment to Rauru and Sonia.
Yeah.
Because most of us happen to get that memory of her getting killed very early.
Oh, yeah.
It seems like me and you progressed very similarly in the game. Like I left the sky to the end.
Interesting.
Yeah, I had no interest, like, honestly, and it was kind of why I was a detractor of the game before, and then I decided to get into it. I have no interest in that gameplay. Like, I'm not super crazy about aerial gameplay. Hell, I can go back to, like, you know, like Mario 3 and hating, like, the air stages. So, like, my aversion to that is, like, well documented. But I definitely feel like you don't develop that closeness. So my thing is, I felt like Breath of the Wild was a story about the champions.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And their relationship to Link and Zelda.
Yeah.
I feel like Tears of the Kingdom is a story about Link and Zelda.
Oh, yeah.
The problem is, it's a story about Link and Zelda with one of them being absent for the entire game.
Yeah.
And it kind of brings me back to some of the problems I have with Nintendo, and we'll see if anything happens in the DLC, but how many of us, I would say it was almost unanimous, begged and begged and begged in the development cycle for this game to play as Zelda. And nothing. Nothing at all. I put hundreds of hours into Hyrule Warriors in all 3 of its variations to play as Zelda.
Yeah.
To play as Zelda with the color switch so she could be Hilda. Like, everyone loves Zelda. And I don't know if they're saving some, like, big wallop for us, like the next big, Link to the Past, the next big Link to the Past style, huge, monumental game might be about Zelda.
Yeah.
Like, that would be incredible, but if that doesn't happen, like, why are you withholding her from us?
This was the chance to do it, honestly. I think this is the chance to do it. And I really, really thought it was going to happen. And I think that, like, one thing is, this version of Zelda, Breath of the Wild 2 Tears of the Kingdom, is probably my favorite version of Zelda because of her character, the arc she goes on, and just her personality and everything. I really like her. There are, like, quotes from Aonuma and some of the development team where they're surprised when they realize that people want to play as her, and I'm like, why are you surprised? Yes, Link is the hero of the game, but Link has been the hero for 35 years. Link can still be the hero, but give us another additional character, because, like, I made a video last year after I beat God of War Ragnarok. Have you played God of War Ragnarok, by the way?
I have not.
Okay, mild spoilers, mild, but basically you not only play as Kratos, but you play as his son Atreus. And when I saw that, I was like, they need to do this with Tears of the Kingdom. They need to do this because it just makes perfect sense, and it is basically a nice addition to the sequel. There's a lot of additions to the sequel to Breath of the Wild, which is Tears of the Kingdom, with the content, with the gameplay and all that, but having Zelda in there would have radically changed things. And even so small as like Zelda being sent to the past and you play out those memories as Zelda, that would have been amazing. That would have even made the connection with Rauru and Sonia that much closer. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that it's probably wishful thinking, but I'm hoping that when some DLC comes down, maybe there's something like that.
Oh, I really hope so, yeah.
Like, it would be really cool if there was like a 2 or 3 hour adventure that's maybe like 1 or 2 dungeons and a little like world gameplay where you can play as Zelda with like a small session where you could like maybe like level up your gear or weapons a couple times and then face a dungeon, and that would be really fun and have it be something relevant. The other thing I definitely absolutely want to see in the DLC, and I think was a huge swing and miss, and the whole time during the game I'm like, please get into them. I wanted to see more about the sages.
Oh,
and the fact that they're just literally like shadow figures, and I'm like, come on. Like, as someone who loves the champions so much, the champions from Breath of the Wild and the new champions, I need more of that. I love the representation of the different lifestyles and races in that world. And like, it's like what a character like Urbosa and Riju did for the Garuda. Like, they're literally, the Garuda are literally the ultimate bad guys all the time. Like, so like they put a personification and a human side to it. And the one thing I did like, though, right, because we got used to Urbosa and them not as terrible people, the one thing I did like in Tears of the Kingdom is that they showed that they went right along with Ganon.
Yes, and what's interesting is that Gerudo Sage was kind of like a she still stuck true to like the Gerudo's values and everything, whereas Ganondorf had some like a group of Gerudo who like sided with him. This was like the leader who was like, no, we're not siding with Ganondorf, we are still staying true to who we are as the Gerudo. And it would have been so cool to see more of her in that role. And like, I miss talking about this in my video, but that whole like Secret Stone Demon King reuse of that cutscene, it was kind of unfortunate because Ocarina of Time is my favorite Zelda game. It's my favorite game of all time. It means a lot to me. And when I heard that the sages were back in this game, I was so excited because I was like, this is the sages. They're gonna give some awesome callbacks to Ocarina. And when you look at the Ocarina of Time dialogue with the sages, it's at times a lot more profound than what we have gotten in Tears of the Kingdom, because the Tears of the Kingdom ones are just, oh, I am your ancestor, Secret Stone, Demon King, imprisoning war, go do that. And I was like, these guys could have been utilized so much more, and it's unfortunate they weren't.
It drove me crazy that each of those scenes was cookie cutter, literally. Like you only needed to see one and just replace the race name and the names, and you're like, wow, this is literally the same scene, just played out the same way. Like, I felt that was very low effort, and I don't understand why there was so little effort put into everything that had to do with the sages.
It was very sad. And here's a cool theory that I haven't talked about on the channel, but I might have talked about it on someone else's channel, but I think you'd like this. I think I know the names of the sages. And basically, I think, so you see their masks, right? Their masks are like Zonai versions of the Divine Beasts. So I think that their names are Meadow, Rudania, Naboris, and Ruta. And they are named like those are their names. And if you place Tears of the Kingdom's past story with the Zonai at the very beginning of the timeline. Then characters like Ruto, Darunia, Medley, and Naburu are named after the Tears of the Kingdom sages. And not only that, the names of the divine beasts are named after the Tears of the Kingdom sages because of the masks they are wearing. So that's my theory.
Let me take that a step further.
Oh.
So I discussed this theory with my wife,
yeah.
and it came to me, and I think it would be incredible.
Yeah.
So the champions talk about in Breath of the Wild that the divine beasts more or less have personalities.
Yeah. Oh,
What if, right, that we had kind of a Zonai Sage deal with them and the divine beasts?
That would be
that the spirits inhabiting those divine beasts that give them that personality could very well be those sages.
I like that idea because, as you see in Breath of the Wild, there are, like, when you're in that divine beast and you hear the champion talking to you, it's as if the divine beast is talking to you, but then you're like, oh wait, no, never mind, that's Rivali, or no, that's Mifa. But it's almost as if it was Meadow or Ruta talking to you. So that kind of spirit sharing kind of thing would make sense, and that also kind of relates back to your whole thing about Minoru's spirit connection with the Zonai and stuff. So I can.
Well, I also think that like it literally shows them like petting them.
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna get Ganon, and they're like petting it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, they're kind of like personified.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool. And even, especially Urbosa, she's like, oh, Naboris, let's take this fight back to Calamity again, and it's a lot more personal now or something. So I do like that theory. But moving on, okay, so we covered a good bit of stuff. We covered positives, negatives, comparing it to Breath of the Wild. I will say some quick things before we move on. Playing off of your Zelda being playable idea, I think it could totally work because they could just make new animations for Zelda, but Zelda also has a recall. When she went back in the past, she has the Secret Stone with her, which allows her to use recall. So Zelda could be playable and she could do and solve puzzles with recall. Even if it's just one ability, they can just make recall puzzles for Zelda to solve, and it would be cool. Just do it, Nintendo. I don't know why they're hesitant to do it. I really think they should. And a few of my favorite moments from Tears of the Kingdom was I liked the whole lead up to Zelda becoming the Light Dragon. I like getting the Master Sword. That was a very powerful moment. I think that's the best Master Sword retrieval in the series for me. And I like the final boss because before Tears of the Kingdom, my favorite final boss of all time was Demise in Skyward Sword. And I say that because it was my favorite final boss of all time before Tears of the Kingdom. So yeah, that Tears of the Kingdom final boss is great. But I remember you said you had some things to say about Zelda becoming the Light Dragon and her turning back into Zelda. So what are your thoughts on that? Because I have some things to say about that too.
So I think, like, again, if anyone's seen my channel, I like to focus a lot on like the darker themes and the tragic themes of things. And I want to point out that that's not necessarily a happy ending, because you have to imagine how much time that was for Zelda. And we don't know how long that felt or how long it was. So imagine, and I totally, like, it's a foregone conclusion that they are in love, they are lovers, they're living together. Anyone who says that they're not is...
No, they are.
They don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, they are. It's basically confirmed in the game.
Yeah. And so imagine being away, right, from the person you love for that long. And being a stranger in a strange land for that long. Yeah. And even though, right, she develops a close relationship with Sonia and Rauru, how long did that take? We're only getting glimpses into this.
Yeah.
So what did Zelda go through? And two, when she somehow is, you know, it has to end happily. Yeah. So they use the powers or whatever to make it okay, even though it's said that it can't be done. So, you know, it ends happily, but is she gonna be okay?
Yeah.
Because she was away from all of her advisors, her friends, and her lover for a very long time. Now, what if that felt like 10 or 20 years? I can't imagine being away from my wife for 20 years.
Yeah.
And still wanting to be with her and loving her still. Like, it's not like they were divorced, right? She wants to be with him.
Yeah.
She made this sacrifice for him. But
they
like,
were literally separated by time, and yeah, that's the kind of the longest distance. Even though they were still in Hyrule, they're in completely different time periods, which made it a little more sadder.
So though it may have been over the period of like a couple of weeks or a month for him, in you know, the game world we're playing in, that could have been years for her.
Oh yeah.
I would be curious to see if Zelda is still the same after some like good old like PTSD from what happened there and being away from everything she knew. So that's why like everyone's like, oh, it ends happily. I'm like, well, I really want to see how she fares after that. She might not be good.
I kind of wish the game showed us that, because it showed us her just waking up and she just took everything very normally. She was like, oh, Link, it was like I was in a dream, and oh, I was in the past and I met so many people. And then even like the goodbye to Minoru, it felt like Zelda was just back to her normal self, which is good. It's good to see her back to her normal self. But after hearing Minoru consistently keep saying to become a divine drag or an eternal dragon is to lose oneself, you lose who you are, I wanted to see some of the ramifications within the game itself. I was hoping that they wouldn't like cut corners, and I was hoping that they would take risks and maybe have Zelda lose her memory or come out being a little more shaken from the experience, or maybe even keep her the light dragon forever and have like Rauru and Sonia are like, Link, I don't know if we can do this. This was Zelda's sacrifice and this is what it means for the Kingdom of Hyrule. I would have been okay with that. That would have been a heart-wrenching, really sad ending, but it would have been a really big risk for Nintendo to take, and I would have been down for it. But I agree with you that we don't know what Zelda had gone through from the time that she woke up to the time Minoru says goodbye, and even after that. So we could probably like see that in the DLC, or we just probably won't know, but that's always for us to speculate and theorize on. But yeah, moving on, real quick, what are some of your other favorite Legend of Zelda stories, and what are your overall thoughts on the Zelda timeline? We can kind of club these two together.
So I started with A Link to the Past, you know, when I was like a kid. And
you're one of the OGs.
I adored it, and it was one of those games, like, I didn't own it at first, and I like borrowed it from my friend, and he was just loaning it to me for the weekend, and he didn't get it back for quite a long time, and I think he was pissed because I just wouldn't give it up. I just get so into it. So for me, you know, that's always like the OG. And then when they did A Link Between Worlds, the gameplay was so similar and great, and the story was spectacular in that. And I think we're going to get to that in one of your topics you have coming up about other stories I liked.
You're going to hate me for this. I have yet to play A Link Between Worlds, but I will say this, it is on my list. It is downloaded on my 3DS back there. It is on my 3DS, and I will play it.
Talk about it without like shattering here.
I basically know a good bit of what happens in A Link Between Worlds because I watch a lot of Zelda lore and stuff, but I just need to sit down and play that game because I love A Link to the Past. I love it so much, and like there are so many things that, like, I played A Link to the Past when I was much older than you when you played it, but I was still like appreciating it so much because of the vibe, the atmosphere, the music, the storytelling, and I was like, what am I doing? Why am I not playing A Link Between Worlds? So I will play it, but yeah.
Like A Link to the Past is so in my, like, it's in my brain. Like when I hear like rain on the roof, I'm like, oh my god, it's the intro. Like, you know, I'm gonna find my uncle,
Castle,
like,
yeah.
and he's gonna give me a sword. I'm gonna go save the princess. Like, it always just, it's in my memories forever. But also, I'm a huge Musou fan, and I completely adored the new characters made for Hyrule Warriors, and I completely adored the alternative timeline.
Age of Calamity?
For Age of Calamity.
Cool.
And I always tell people, it's my main thing, because a lot of people immediately discount it, because A, they don't like, you know, hack and slash horde combat games, and B, oh, it's just a spin-off, it doesn't count. But it does in a way that it accurately shows you how the champions and many of the characters never got a chance to interact would interact in those situations. So, I actually think it's incredibly valuable, and in my in-depth lore videos I made for Breath of the Wild, a lot of the, you know, assumptions and information I got about how they felt and how they reacted.
You got it from Age of Calamity.
Observing them, and even though their actions and the events were not canon, they reacted the way they would.
Yeah, even though it's not canon, it's an alternate timeline where those characters are still the same people, so they would still act the same way. So that's interesting that you got that kind of character insight from those other games. I didn't
really have anyone get negative about it, but a couple people were like, well, you're including a lot of stuff in these videos from something that's not like canon or official, and I'm like,
but that's still Urbosa, that's still Rivali, that's still Zelda,
right?
Yeah, and still that same variation. But yeah, that's really cool. Like Age of Calamity did have a lot of really cool additional lore with that stuff, and I really liked, I haven't played it, but I saw the cutscenes and stuff. I loved that they included Astor. Astor was so cool because I have Creating a Champion up there on my shelf, and Astor is mentioned in that. They just call him the fortune teller who told King Rome and the Queen of Hyrule that Calamity Ganon will come, and everyone's like, oh, this fortune teller was behind everything, and we see him in Age of Calamity, so that was awesome. And one quick thing about A Link to the Past is I really like that game, but I will say that I think it feels like the most medieval Zelda game. And that's hard to explain, but the music, the atmosphere, even the dialogue, you talk to these random NPCs and the way they interact with you, it just feels very like retro medieval style, and I'm like, I never grew up in this era, but it's so cool. if that makes any sense. But yeah,
no, it absolutely does.
Yeah. My favorite Zelda stories, I would say, as much as we've been critiquing it and nitpicking it in this video, I will put Tears of the Kingdom up there. I prefer it over Breath of the Wild, but I will say my favorites are Skyward Sword is #1, then maybe Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, and Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time just means the most to me. It is the most memorable and most impactful to me personally, but Skyward Sword also means a lot to me through nostalgia, and I just love the storytelling and the characters in that game. I remember you were saying that you couldn't get around the motion controls, but you watch other people play it and you enjoy the story through them, so I really love a lot of the characters in Skyward Sword, from Groose to that version of Zelda, Link, Impa. I love all of them in Skyward Sword. And Wind Waker is really cool because I have other problems with Wind Waker, but I love that Wind Waker showed us a hero that wasn't really supposed to be the hero, and he had to kind of like work extra hard to become the hero and prove himself as the hero. So I appreciated that. And then of course I just love Ocarina of Time's story of growing up, maturity, coming to terms with a lot of things with growing up and all that, so I just love that. And even Majora's Mask. Majora's Mask has amazing symbolism. But what are your thoughts on the timeline and what the timeline has meant for the series? Because you've been around with the Zelda series much longer than I have, and you have experienced pre-timeline Zelda. Like, I have as well, but not for as long as you have. So I want to hear your insights on pre-timeline Zelda.
So it may sound strange, but I liken it to Mario.
Interesting.
Nobody is asking the question of what order the events between Mario 1, 2, 3, you know, all the different Mario games happened. You just enjoy them for what they are, and there's no need for all the conjecture about when this happened, what that happened. Are the Koopa kids real, or is Bowser Jr. real? You could have that same discussion, because they totally just did a whole bunch of random stuff. You have to understand that Zelda was not planned at all. It's all just random stuff. So the way I see it, and what I love, is that things like Hyrule Warriors bring it all together. Is that it's almost not necessary. Now, just like everyone else, right? When Hyrule Historia came out, I was glued to it, trying to decipher the timelines and figure all this out. And in the end, I realized it really doesn't matter, and I really don't care. What I care about is enjoying the games for what they are, and unless a direct link is mentioned between the games, then it really doesn't matter. Link. Even in the story, right? Even in the story, it literally, like when you look at Skyward Sword, Demise doomed this to happen over and over again. I will come after you every time. I will be reborn, and you will be, and we will do this again. That was his dying curse on the land. And so the timeline doesn't even really matter, because for time immemorial, it's going to keep happening. And we can tell 100 different stories about it. And all of the people are not related. And I know people like to have things to talk about. And if someone's interested in that, I don't judge them for it. Go ahead, debate it all day. But I just enjoy the games and enjoy each one for what they are.
I feel both ways, because I remember when I was younger, when I first got into this series and I realized that there was an interconnected timeline, figuring out how all these games were connected just blew my mind, because this was I will say, you know I love JRPGs, I love games with those kinds of stories, but Zelda was the first game that I played which had a super expansive lore and story like this, even before I played Xenoblade or anything like in the JRPG genre. So I was mind blown when I realized that Twilight Princess is like a sequel to Ocarina of Time, and Wind Waker takes place at maybe the same time but on another timeline, and how Minish Cap could be a prequel to Ocarina of Time, and all of this, I was just mind blown. And seeing how the Master Sword was created in Skyward Sword, all those moments are really cool. But I do agree that sometimes placing all this stuff together and finding connections, I wouldn't say takes away from the enjoyment of the games, but it makes you realize, hey, there's so much more when it comes to the story and the characters, as well as the games themselves, that people may be missing out on when trying to place together the timeline stuff. Because especially with Tears of the Kingdom, I was like, I hope this game answers a lot of timeline questions. In fact, it gave more timeline questions than answering any, and at first I was a little upset. I was like, oh, this is not what I wanted. But then in the end, I was like, this game is still providing so much for us. So like, we have years and years and years and years to theorize, debate, discuss, and enjoy with Tears of the Kingdom, so that's not too big of a problem in the long run. But I will say, I kind of like had a denial moment when Rauru and Sonia said, oh yeah, we're the first king and queen of Hyrule. I was like, what? No way. I thought that was Link and Zelda from Skyward Sword. For like the past like 12 years, I thought like Link and Zelda from Skyward Sword would be the first king and queen. So it was interesting that this game just kind of turned it on its head. But things like that Zelda does is just very interesting, and I appreciate the series for what it is. And it is, like I said, the first game that really got me into lore and world building in video games. Yeah. And I want to say one more thing about lore and world building. I hope, or actually this will kind of go hand in hand with the next topic, what the future of the Zelda holds narratively. And me as a Xenoblade fan, I always have to bring Xenoblade into the conversation, but I love the stories that Xenoblade tells, how it interweaves the plots from other games into the current game, and kind of like says like, oh, this thing that happened in the past in this game and this game, it'll all like come together in this one game later on. And on top of all that lore connectivity stuff, it still has a really like well-developed plot and story with really great characters, really like impactful, moving, philosophical messages and all that. So with that in mind, what do you think is next for the Zelda series, especially with us having played many JRPGs such as Xenoblade, Final Fantasy, etc., etc.?
Well, I mean, I honestly, I don't even know that they know.
Yeah.
And with the fact that we've done, you know, all of these warrior games with Koei, who knows what else they might be willing to do?
Yeah.
You know, if you're working with Koei, who knows that, you know, they don't work with like Square and make like a Zelda tactical RPG.
Please.
Like that would be incredible. But realistically, you know, a lot of people are saying that we're going to go back to, you know, something that's more like 2D traditional. But I don't know that we can at this point. I think it's going to get bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And I did, you know, kind of say earlier that maybe the reason we're not being given, you know, the playable Zelda is maybe we are going to have a game that focuses on Zelda. Like, could you imagine, you know, like a game that's kind of like something like, you know, like an open world, like almost like Tomb Raider style Zelda game where, you know, she's doing the hook shot and you know, it's traversing all these crazy terrain.
That'd be so cool.
Or, you know, combat similar to like Horizon Zero Dawn. Like, there's so many things I could imagine that they could do with like a Zelda character in that. But honestly, like, you know, I can't really say. I can say the things I'd like to see. You know, I can say I'd like to see another Warriors game because I love them. Yeah. But honestly, you know, I think the future is kind of untold right now.
Oh yeah. And, I like your ideas though. I will say for the Warriors one, they did Age of Calamity. The whole Hyrule Warriors thing, it's happening for Tears of the Kingdom. 100%, I think it is. And it'll be Hyrule Warriors: The Imprisoning War. I think so. I think instead of Zelda going back in time, I think she'll be back there, but I think Link will go back there and fight the Imprisoning War with them, and we'll get so much lore from the sages, the champions, the Zonai, and I would be so down for a game like that that gives us more lore and time with characters like this. Hyrule Warriors: The Imprisoning War. Give it to us, Nintendo. And I am totally down for a game where you play as Zelda. I think Nintendo just needs to wake up, realize that the fans want it, and give it to us, because Nintendo lately has been really good about seeing what fans want and giving it to us. Like, there are a lot of problems that people had with Tears of the Kingdom, or sorry, Breath of the Wild, that were fixed in Tears of the Kingdom. Similarly, a lot of gameplay issues that people had with the first two Xenoblades were fixed in Xenoblade 3. So I hope that they realize that we want this, and I hope that they give it to us. So yeah, that's what I think about the future of, like, when it comes to the future of Zelda. I also realized this one thing. I think this is the end of Ganondorf. I don't see him coming back, and I'm fine with that because we got so many games with Ganondorf and he basically got nuked as a dragon. So I don't think he's coming back. I think the demise curse, if it still is there, will take a different form. And I'm very excited and curious to see what that new form and that maybe new reoccurring villain of the Zelda series will be. So yeah. And I think we have talked about all things Zelda. And now, this is what I've been waiting for. I've been waiting to finally talk to someone about Fire Emblem Engage. And, Fire Emblem Engage. This is an interesting topic because I've been talking to a few people about this game, and they're like, oh, the story isn't good and stuff. I will say this. I will preface this by saying this. My favorite Fire Emblem game is Fire Emblem Awakening on the 3DS. There are few games that I point out as inflection points and major games that have like changed my scope of my gaming life. One is like Ocarina of Time. Another is Xenoblade Chronicles, the first, probably all of them, but like of course the first Xenoblade Chronicles. Another is actually Fire Emblem Awakening. And the reason I say that is because I attribute that game as like my first ever JRPG that I really got into and really invested my time into. and the soundtrack, the characters, the story, the gameplay, it is all such a nostalgia train to me. Like last year when Engage was announced, I went back and listened to the Awakening OST, and it was such a massive nostalgia train. It just reminded me of all the good memories I had with Awakening. And I will say, the reason I really vibed with Engage so much, one reason in particular, is because it reminded me of Awakening. The art style, the characters, the story, the gameplay, it all just gave me Awakening vibes. And I will say, there are times in the story where it is not as well thought out, well written as Three Houses. But I also realized and remembered that this is a celebration of Fire Emblem. This is them celebrating all the characters, bringing them all together, and just having a fun time. Because like I would go into the Somnial, have these support conversations, and they were just nice and fun and really just feel good conversations in this game. And I really enjoyed those, as well as just I think my thing with Fire Emblem is it's a very character-driven experience, and I love the characters in Engage, and we'll talk about specifics later, but you want to give your viewers an idea of what you thought of Engage, because I know you really, really, really did enjoy it.
Okay, so for one, sorry if I offend anybody, but we're just going to get right out there, okay? Yeah. So Fire Emblem Engage is the game of the year, Cold Knight's game of the year for sure, okay? I knew it right when I played it. Nothing will top it. I love the Tears of the Kingdom to death. It doesn't top it. Nothing will top it. So the first thing I have to say is we got to look at a little recent history. All right. So Three Houses rose to its prominence because of when it came out.
Oh yeah, the pandemic and stuff. Yeah.
It was a pandemic game, and you had a lot of people who had either been away from gaming for a long time or never had really been involved with gaming. So
and it was their first Fire Emblem game. Right. It was their first one. Those people likely
have not played the Fire Emblem games. All right. So me, I'm a huge fan of Sacred Stones.
Yeah.
You know, going back to like the DS.
Yeah. Shadow Dragon and all that. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And what I want to tell people is, right, I love Three Houses, and I'm currently on like a huge bender playing Three Hopes. Like I adore that universe, but that is not.
Yeah, it's not.
Fire Emblem.
It was shocking to me as well, because I played Awakening, I played FE7, I played some other Fire Emblem games, and then I played Three Houses. I was like, whoa, this story, like, it's a lot happening at once, and it was good, but I was like, this is like a new thing for the series, and I enjoyed it. But when Engage went back to a more of a character-driven, simplistic story, I was not opposed to it. But sorry to cut you off. Continue.
Yeah, I mean, I love it, and I'm not. A lot of people, when I say that I like Engage better, they think I'm having an indictment of Three Houses, but I'm not. I adore it. But I would put this out there, and maybe not everyone will agree with this. But literally, Three Houses is as different from traditional Fire Emblem as Tokyo Mirage Sessions is.
Okay. Yeah.
Literally, like a completely different gameplay. I mean, not gameplay. I mean, the battles are still there. Yeah. They're few and far between. But it's still mainly a life simulation.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And the characters they introduced are great. But if you play things like Sacred Stones, right, you would know that the character development and the story in Engage is not lacking, and it's not poor. It's actually par for the course.
Yeah.
And again, kind of like you alluded to, it is basically Fire Emblem All-Stars.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if that didn't get you giddy to see all of those great characters from past games come back as the rings, then that's insane.
Yeah,
like,
I thought it was so cool, because everyone immediately was like, oh, it's gonna be gacha, oh, it's gonna be fan service, and I was like, why don't we just wait and play the game ourselves? And then we played the game, and then the whole narrative turned into, oh, the story's silly, oh, it's goofy, and I was like, a lot of the story beats felt fine to me, and then some of them reminded me of Awakening, like the whole chapter where you fight I forgot the name of the kingdom, but you go and fight Ivy and Hortensia's father, and then Illusia, yeah, and then you figure out that the Brodian king has also been taken over by this like corrupted force, and you're like, oh, and like some of the dialogue and that was amazing, like when Alchrist or Diamant has to like kill their father and they don't want to do it, but then they have to. That was a very powerful moment as well. And I will say, the characters in this game are very underrated. I was not excited for some of these characters, but I just find it funny that the characters I was excited for, I didn't vibe with as much, but the characters I wasn't excited for, I ended up absolutely loving. And I will say, Yunaka and Tamara are my favorite characters in the game, and I wasn't like super excited for them. I was like, oh, I'll just have them on my team, I'll play as them or whatever, but they have now become some of my favorite characters in the series. So I love the whole dynamic, and I love the whole cast of characters we have in this game as well. Yeah.
I think that also a lot of people, I just don't understand whether or not seeing the emotional attachments to it. Like when you look specifically at what happened in Illusia, you have to take a look at how that would appear to Ivy and Hortensia. That their father, he is their father, okay? And it looks like in the geopolitical, even before the, you know, the evil demon dragon came, that they were kind of like the aggressors and the bad guys already. Yeah. But that's their dad.
Yeah.
And they loved their dad.
Yeah.
And their dad just got taken over and then destroyed by an evil dragon. And they have to betray their dad, and they have to join you to save the damn world.
Yeah.
And it's also a great dichotomy. Like when Ivy first appears, it was such a badass scene.
Yeah. She
gets off that dragon, walks over to you all like femme fatale like, and is like, I'm gonna take your souls.
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn. And now, like if I was to pick the two canon love interests for Alir, who I believe, this may offend everyone, is canonically male. Sorry.
Yeah.
The two love interests I would pick would be Alfred, right? And if you play through Alfred's, when you give Alfred the ring, it's very real and very romantic.
Yeah.
And so is Ivy's. So Ivy goes from someone who is going to literally kill you and steal your soul to someone who is extremely red blushing because she's in love with you.
But Ivy has a very good arc. And I like Ivy definitely has a very good arc, and I love all of her supports, but Alfred has very good supports as well, with his sister Saline and with everyone else, and even with Alir as well. I loved Alfred as a character a lot.
There's so much tragedy in the game with what happens with Illusia, and super spoilers, I cried during the epilogue, because like the second entry in the epilogue is Alfred. And if you had done all his story work with Celine and all them, you know that as a boy, Alfred was very sick. And he almost died, and he had to stay inside. And he made a miraculous recovery in his teenage years and becomes this dashing prince and incredible warrior. And then after the events of the story, like a year or two later, he dies. Like he wasn't okay. And I literally just broke down because he was my canon love interest. I used Alfred from the moment I had him all the way till the end, even though tier lists had him at like 15. I was like, I don't care. He's my favorite. I'm doing it. And I would say, if you, like you had mentioned your favorite, my two favorite character designs are definitely Panette.
Oh, I saw the poster in the back. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Panette and Alfred for sure.
Yeah, Alfred's awesome.
I don't like Goldmary though, because she's hilarious.
Goldmary,
weird, egotistical, like prissy, and she's just trying, like all of her like scenes with you, she's trying to like seduce you and get your attention, and you're like kind of not paying attention. And she's getting pissed off. Like it's hilarious.
Yeah, I liked all those characters, but I will say Yunaka is interesting because when like during the pre-release they're showing a lot of her, and I was like, oh, this character is just your average thief, whatever. She's got like the peppy personality, high up papaya, whatever. And I got her on my team. I was like, oh, whatever. This is the character that everyone likes, but I'm probably not gonna vibe with her. And then I did her supports, and I saw the completely different side of Yunaka, and now she's one of my favorite characters in the series because like she has supports with other people, and they're like, Yunaka, we know about your past, we know that you're a cold-blooded murderer, and she's like, no, I swear I'm a completely different person. But she has that kind of like two-faced side to her, but the more you get to know her, you realize who she really is. So I really liked Yunaka as a character in that. And yeah, I think a lot of people who judge Engage should complete the game and play it for themselves, and also play other Fire Emblem games outside of Three Houses. Like FE7 is on Switch, on the Switch Online, as well as like Fire Emblem Awakening, Fates, and all that is on the 3DS. Hopefully we'll get more remasters and remakes in the future, especially for Fire Emblem 4 Genealogy of the Holy War, which I'm really looking forward to. That's like highly rumored to be remade and released soon. Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to mention about Engage specifically is it's extremely inclusive.
Oh, yeah.
You have characters of many different races and religions. You have characters, you literally have like a femboy.
Yeah, you have Rosado, yeah.
Yeah, you have a Prince Charming, and one of my favorite characters that really grew on me, and so many people did not do her supports, is Saphir. Saphir is the dark-skinned knight that was with Diamant and his father.
And she's an older character as well.
Yeah,
so you're getting
she talked about losing her love during the war, and her love was another woman.
Yeah.
And
oh, interesting. I did not know that. That's cool. Yeah.
And I like how this game, so basically the game features gay, lesbian, different race, different religion characters. Guess what? They're all getting along. White and brown people are getting along. Gay and straight people are getting along. Like, it's very inclusive. And one of the things I've seen people say is, I don't like the characters. And I'm like, wait, why don't you like the characters though? Are you mad because there's a femboy in it? Are you mad because there's a black lady in it? Like, why don't you like them?
Yeah.
Like, I want to know.
Yeah.
And I thought it was incredibly cool that it was inclusive.
Yeah, and I love the cast in Engage a lot. I love them kind of like how I love the shepherds in Awakening. And I love the students in Three Houses as well, but I will say, you have to play all the routes to get all the experience of Three Houses, and like I played a few of them, and I know who the characters are because of supports and stuff, but that one thing is an issue, taking so long to do all the routes. Second is, I didn't like that in the first arc of Three Houses, all the characters look the same in the sense that they're all wearing the same uniform, same outfit, everything. You don't see their personality. I would always like identify people based off their hair color and stuff, and it reminded me of, I don't know if you've watched Attack on Titan, but in the first early arcs of Attack on Titan, everyone kept, like, I remember some people saying like, oh, Attack on Titan has such good character design. I said, no, I don't think it does, because everyone looks the exact same, and that's fine because that's what the plot is of that like anime series or that manga series. But that was also something that kind of threw me off of Attack on Titan. I was like, I really need to pay attention to these characters' names and their appearance, because they don't have like visual striking personality traits to them, where like in Engage you have like Yunaka, who looks completely different from Lapis, who looks completely different from Alfred, who looks completely different from some other person, and it's all a very colorful, diverse, like well-designed cast. I like the character design in Engage, so I was very confused why a lot of people were not down for that. But
so I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So, because I do, and it sounds like you do too, have a soft spot for Three Houses.
Yeah.
Who is your favorite character in Three Houses?
I have a handful. I will say, here's my experience with Three Houses. I finished Edelgard's route, and I got to the end of it, and I was like, it was good. I enjoyed the game, but I feel like I would like Golden Deer more. So I started my Golden Deer New Game Plus, and I love every single person in the Golden Deer house. But I will say, a few of my favorite characters, just hand-picking some. One is Petra from Black Eagles. I really like Petra, really awesome character. I love her. So many to choose from in Golden Deer, but I would say Lysithea is a standout. I think Hilda is really fun and fun-loving and really funny. Marianne is also a great character. I wasn't really like down for like Marianne's whole like personality, and then I got to do more of her supports, and I was like, I want to learn more about this character. I want to know like what makes her who she is. And Blue Lions, I like Felix. I think Felix is cool, and I don't have much interest in the Blue Lions characters, but I have not gone very far in Three Hopes, but I started Three Hopes and I chose the Blue Lions route. So I will get to know more of Dimitri and that route in there. But I will say Petra and Lysithea, Marianne, those characters are up there. And Golden Deer House, that is like my house, I will say. What about you?
I'm definitely Golden Deer. That's the first thing I played through in Three Houses and in Three Hopes. And my favorite from Golden Deer is, like, I love Claude, obviously,
great,
but like Marianne is I'm gonna go out and say it, the best character in Fire Emblem history.
Yeah.
She has the most tragic story. She has the crest of the beast.
Yeah.
She's been like sequestered away because she is like too dangerous to be around other people.
Yeah.
And her personality, the reason that she is the way she is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
That she is a kept girl. She has been kept away from the world.
Yeah, Marianne and Bernadetta have kind of a similar thing. Yeah. And
Bernadetta is my other favorite character.
Yeah.
And she is another tragic one.
Yeah.
And the fact that she cannot overcome her fear.
Yeah.
And it's sad. And the fact that I've seen so many playthroughs where people sacrifice her on that hill in the fire.
No.
To the point where like there's like fan art of it. Like I posted one on Discord the other day of her sitting there at the ballista and just surrounded by flames. And I'm like, oh no. God, no. and it's such a sad scene too. She's like, I don't want to fight you, teacher. And then Edelgard lights the place up. And you're like, what are we gonna do about her? And Edelgard's like, this isn't the way it was supposed to be, but it is what it is. Because she's evil. Edelgard is evil. I do not like her character. We had a great debate in Discord about it. And everyone's trying to stand up for her. No, you'll never change my mind on it. No matter which route. Because a couple of our friends had me read up on the Edelgard route I wasn't familiar with, where she's a little better of a character. She's still evil. When you'll just kill people, whether or not your cause is just, when you don't value people's lives, you're evil. Edelgard is evil.
That's why near the end of Black Eagles, I just didn't vibe with a lot of what was going on, so I was like, I'm gonna play Golden Deer next and see how that goes. I need to continue that Golden Deer New Game Plus. But I'll say,
and I think,
sorry, continue.
Also, the Golden Deer out of all of them is the only one that has an altruistic mission. Claude is literally trying to break down the walls within that alliance. He wants to, and if you play Three Houses, if you're playing Golden Deer on Three Hopes, wait till you get to like the middle of that story.
Okay.
Some stuff happens with Elmira that you'll be like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's really deep. I don't want to spoil it because it's that cool.
I'll remember that.
The Golden Deer route, and I'm about 3/4 through it because I like keep grinding like the records battles.
Yeah.
But like about 3/4 through it, there's some big stuff that happens too, and you're just like jaw open. You're like, holy crap! Remember, it's just an alternate timeline, just like, and you're like, wow, I can't believe it happened.
That's cool. That's really cool. And I will say real quick about Marianne and Bernadetta, I love that their time skip version is like those two characters arguably have the biggest growth in the time skip, because Bernadetta, like when I haven't experienced a time skip in Golden Deer yet, but I've seen a little bit of what Marianne is like. But for Bernadetta, it almost felt like a completely different character when I was doing a lot of these supports, and even the characters are like, oh, Bernadetta, you're so much more confident and stuff now, but she's still like, oh, I still have my reservations and fears about so-and-so and such, but I am more confident in these things. And you're like, wow, that's pretty cool. That's nice that in that 5-year gap, both those characters got to mature and grow and stuff like that. So yeah. Any final thoughts on Zelda or Fire Emblem or anything like that?
My biggest thing, and it's something I always preach, is that as you know, ardently as I made those points, right? This is still a loving community, and we should all just share in the love for it. If you love Three Houses and didn't like Engage, I hope you enjoy the hell out of Three Houses.
Yeah.
I'm never going to tell you not to.
Yeah.
You know, and what I love is that people, most of the time, sometimes on Twitter it can get a little sketchy, but most of the time on YouTube and other, places like Discord and stuff, like, people can just enjoy each other's company and discussion about these things. and not get too heated. So my big thing is just enjoy the games, and enjoy the games with your friends.
Yeah.
Because that's what they're meant to do. Like, you play this game by yourself. They're not, most of them are not multiplayer games, and it's cool to go and talk to your friends, whether it's on the phone or on Discord or on Twitter, and have great discussions like we're having now.
Oh, yeah.
Because if it wasn't for these games and we're still playing Asteroids and Super Mario, we wouldn't be able to have these discussions. Oh, yeah. I'm just thankful for the material that we are given to be able to do this.
Yeah, because I always say this, and I even made a video about this. If you enjoy one game and don't enjoy the other, that is not an excuse for you to belittle and like put down the other game. Because when Baldur's Gate was reviewing well, a lot of Baldur's Gate fans went to Zelda and said Zelda shouldn't win, Zelda is not worthy of any of the praise and everything, and I was like, where did this come from? Why don't we just let one game, like, why don't we just let both games be good, and why don't we enjoy both games? You don't have to put down one game to enjoy another. Same goes with Three Houses Engage. When I realized that there was a separation and kind of a divide in the community, I was like, I enjoy Three Houses for one reason, I enjoy Engage for another reason. Honestly, for me, they're kind of tied. I can't choose one over the other, but I'm not, like, I wouldn't like belittle and put down Three Houses because I enjoy things in Engage more, and vice versa, because all in all, I love both of the games. And even like, I think you might know this, I'm not the biggest fan of Age of Calamity, but I respect that other people had a really great time with it, and you and some of my other friends are telling me things that I didn't even know about Age of Calamity, so maybe one day in the future I might give it a shot. But yeah. So yeah, that's gonna do it for this episode of the EXP podcast. This is Nishquick and Cold Knights Gaming, and Jay from Cold Knights Gaming, you want to give a little bit of insight on future projects and your channel and what you're working on and stuff?
Sure. So we have a couple ongoing lore projects. We're definitely going to be working on a Tears of the Kingdom lore video. I covered a couple of things I'm going to go into with Nish here, but there's definitely some other topics that I want to cover, and little theories I've been working on. And also, we just recently brought back my own podcast, the Cold Takes Podcast, and I want to thank Nish. He made a great, 1K subscriber video that was really emotional and reached out to some of his friends, and it really inspired me to bring back my podcast that was on hiatus, because, the community it builds, wanted to get back on track with that. So we're back. We've had great guests so far. We got some more great ones lined up, so definitely check that out.
Yeah.
And of course, I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, yeah. I've always wanted to have you on my podcast as well, and I sort of discovered you through your podcast, and, like, of course, I met you through Twitter, and then I saw your channel, and I was like, oh, you've collabed with people like Brandon from Just the Gems, and Orbology, and, like, so many other people within the JRPG and, like, collecting community. So I was like, I would love to be on his podcast, and I would love to have him on mine. So I was actually on Jay's podcast. You guys can find that episode on his channel, and I'm so happy to have you on the channel as well. And yeah, if you guys love, like I said, JRPGs or basically all things gaming, he's your guy to go to. And of course, if you love Zelda lore, he's got some awesome Zelda lore videos as well, and definitely more to come. And yeah, all his links will be in the description below: Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, all that stuff. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and we had a great discussion, Jay.
Good deal. Thank you very much for having me.
No problem. So yeah, this is Nishquick and Jay from Cold Knights Gaming signing off. Have a great day. Go play some great games today, like Tears of the Kingdom and Fire Emblem Engage, especially Fire Emblem Engage. I'll see you guys in the next one later. Have a good one.